What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Luke here with our LIV Golf live stream. Going to talk about what we learned from round one, what we can expect here for Saturday, and of course, my top picks for DFS on Draftkings. And we'll wrap it up with our top prize picks props. And I'll be using some of my slips for my cards. So first off, got a few people down there. My brother was the first one in there. Wow, that's definitely a first here on the channel too. Guess he loves himself some LIV Golf. Got sacked down there. Let's go. And you've got yourself a 5-5-5 lineup. Okay, sounds like you definitely need the plays here, and we'll make sure to bring them to you. So go ahead and share it. Get right on into it with a look at the leaderboard, because we don't have a lot of the data golf sort of websites, conglomerate, people that are putting together stat profiles round to round out there. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of digging ourselves. And based on watching the round, it was able to watch a decent amount of it, even out on the golf course. Took a few holes off to actually watch some of the action out there, but there were a ton of birdies to be had and also a ton of bogeys. Matthew Wolff had that hole in one. I believe it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 birdies on the day. Birdies are better. One of them was an eagle. Obviously, the hole in one, also an eagle too, but plenty of bogeys too, particularly on this back nine. I noticed that hole number 10 was particularly tricky. Same thing was hole 11. I believe 14 was relatively tricky, which was one of the par fives that was converted to a par four. So that makes a lot of sense. And honestly, hole number 1, too. It's right around 500 yards. Was another one of those par fives. Had to be converted to turn this into a par 70. So there are a few difficult holes out there, which makes sense for a par 72 that had 5 par fives. They had to convert a few of them. But there's also going to be a lot of birdies out there. So you're really looking in Showdown for somebody that can make 7 or 8 birdies, right? So even though he didn't score the best yesterday, let's give you an example of somebody who scored well above their score. So go down to Brooks Koepka. I think he's a great example of this. I believe he shot even par on the day. So you would think that in DraftKings, he probably didn't play all that well. And if you just looked at his front nine, right, you'd probably think so too, right? Only made 1 birdie there, ended up shooting, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 4 over par there. Look at this back nine. Started with 4 straight birdies, so you get that 3 bonus right there. And you had a birdie 4 on the par 5 18th. So you looked at him making 6 birdies, at that price tag. Maybe it wasn't in the optimal lineup, but you played him in a 2 to 3 max, double up, cash, that sort of thing. He more than got the job done yesterday, right? So a lot of people that didn't watch the action, that aren't going to be looking at the LIV leaderboard because, oh no, it's not on their PGA Tour app, right? Aren't going to know how well some of these guys played. Like a Brooks Koepka, like a Mark Leishman, for example. I mean, look at this, 1, 2, 3 birdies, right? 4 birdies on the day. You can see on a few of the par fives didn't take advantage. Actually, on a few of the drivable par four, excuse me there, guys. A few of the drivable par fours didn't make up for his room. Like, you're supposed to go out there and birdie the 2 drivable par fours. All 3 par fives are more than birdieable out there. And just a surprise that a few guys shot even par, but don't avoid them, right? We're going to go through the player poll here in a second. This is a volatile golf course where, if you're making just pars on those difficult holes, you're going to take this 6, 7 under par. In fact, a few of the commentators were joking about it, but you could see something close to a 60, maybe even a 59 around this track, just because every single hole is a birdie hole if you can put it in the fairway. So I guess the one thing that I have hunkered down on, which you can kind of see a trend at the top of the leaderboard here, is driving accuracy. So put Matthew Wolff aside, right? You had the hole in one that's really going to help you out when it comes to your score. But everyone else up here, I guess, except for Cam Smith, right? He's the number 2 player in the world. It makes sense that he's up there. Let's see. Kevin Na, right? What does he do really well? He's accurate off the tee. Joaquin Niemann, maybe not known for his accuracy, but he is above average with his accuracy, one of the longer players on tour, so just gains off the tee to begin with. Taylor Gooch, same type of story, slightly more accurate than your average player off the tee, but not like a super big bomber like a Dustin Johnson, that sort of thing. You're looking at these guys that just gain off the tee with a lot of it is their accuracy, especially for somebody like a Kevin Na, a Bernd Wiesberger, Louis Oosthuizen. All these sort of players are very accurate off the tee. Paul Casey, same sort of story. Arnaban Lahiri, same story. Saddam, you saw that at the Open Championship. Guy hits it off the tee like a rope. Charles Howell III, Pat Perez, Lee Westwood. So, maybe it's not the guys at the tip top, right? Like a Matthew Wolff, a Cam Smith, who's, again, the number 2 player in the world. I guess it makes sense, right? That he's up there in 3rd place. Everyone else has this similar skill set off the tee. They're accurate. They're putting the ball in play, right? It's only a 6,900-yard golf course, and they're tearing it up. with their wedges, right? They're making a lot of putts. It doesn't seem like guys like a DJ really got all that much help. Guys like a Jason Kokrak got all that much help off the tee, right? Because they still played a solid golf. I mean, especially DJ, he was hitting absolute darts out there. It didn't really matter. His score didn't reflect that, right? He still made plenty of bogeys, didn't have the same type of birdie upside some of the guys up top. I mean, the double bogey really held him back. I guess he just needs to clean it up and he'll be okay, right? But if you're looking for some of those mid-tier, lower-tier options, I think you'd be remiss not to take the guys that are a little bit more accurate. And, there's plenty of them that didn't play well, right? That I think might be in a great spot to bounce back. And, anytime we're playing, usually it's like a round 2, round 3 showdown. For LIV, Saturday showdown is round 2. So there is going to be an overreaction to a lot of these scores. So just because Taylor Gooch tore it up today, just because of Joaquin Niemann, Kevin Na, for example, all these sort of players tore it up there in round 1, does not mean they're going to do it today. We know golf is a fickle sport. If anyone plays it out there knows exactly what I'm talking about. On top of that, they're going to be higher owned. They're going to get a lot more attention. If you're thinking you're going to get sneaky by playing a Kevin Na, an Arnaban Lahiri, Paul Casey, who's $10,000, for example, you're wrong. They're going to get plenty of attention, right? Whereas we go down here to, let's say, -2, maybe is a good cutoff point. Richard Bland fits that same description, right? Great putter, very accurate off the tee. He'll probably be half as owned as those other guys up top, if not a third of his owned. Let's see what else we got. Charles Schwartzel, another ball striker, right? He can be accurate off the tee, particularly when he's laying up off the tee. There's really no reason for him to hit anything more than, let's say, a 3-wood and anything but the par 5s. I think he could be a little sneaky fit there, and he's played some really good golf on LIV. In fact, has been in contention multiple times to this point. Let's see, Abraham Answer. I loved him going into the week. He fits that build to a T. Again, think about it. Short, accuracy first type of golf courses or what Abraham Answer can win, right? Particularly when they give you a putting fest too. I mean, he's in top 20 putter in the world, probably top 25 at the very least, just to give him a buffer there. And you're talking about somebody who had a bad round 1, probably going to be half as owned as what he was for the first round contest. Count me in. These are the sort of guys that I'm really trying to get to in the DraftKings format. I'm always okay with Bryson. I'm not the biggest fan on Prize Picks. We're actually going to talk about a fade with Bryson a little bit later. But on DraftKings, at relatively low ownership because he only shot -1 today, he still made plenty of birdies. He made 5 on the day. So 3 on the front 9. You can see on the back 9. He was able to knock off 1 of the par 5s. Bryson not making birdie at number 18, extremely surprising. Hole number 3 is a drivable par 4. He wasn't able to make birdie there. That's surprising. Hole number 5, another drivable par 4. Wasn't able to get birdie there. That is all just eye-opening to me. He's going to figure that out there, right? So on Prize Picks, we're going to talk about him getting to 6 birdies probably not being likely, right? At least from a 50-50 outcome perspective. But if we're getting Bryson at like 10-15% owned, right? We're not playing it as a 50-50 sort of prop, right? If he can get to 7-8 birdies, let's say 30-35% of the time, which I think is probably a realistic number to put on Bryson. Again, he can go nuclear quite often, a lot more than most players out there. Then it's worth playing him in DFS, right? Whereas when we get to Prize Picks a little bit later from a 50-50 perspective, we're probably fading him because his projection is way up there. So that's just to give you an idea on Bryson. He's volatile. So when you're playing him, you have to think about that, right? In a DFS format, that's great. You're okay playing over the field. You're okay taking a risk on somebody like a Bryson. It's up to your risk tolerance. Maybe you're not, right? Maybe you're like, oh, no, I only want to play safe plays, right? Then avoid Bryson DeChambeau, by all means, right? That would definitely not classify as a safe play. However, on Prize Picks, it presents an opportunity there, right? So if you don't like his volatility, right, there's always the other method of going on Prize Picks and taking his under. So we'll talk about that a little bit later too. We'll catch up on chat, see what's going on. Then we're going to continue through the leaderboard here, talk through some of my notes from round 1. We're going to look at the weather here in a second. And then afterwards, we'll hop into the player poll. So let's see what we've got. Anthony down there says, let's go, Sack. I love to see it. Sack's got a little fan club going now. Sack says, what do you think about Saddam is his first name. So I've just been calling him Saddam. It's a lot of the announcers have been too. So you have him and Bland for your cheaper plays. I like Bland. We just talked about him a little bit. And Saddam, I think he's just a better player than people are giving him credit for. I mean, the guy was in contention at the Open Championship. So I like him quite a bit. Martin says, just posted the round 1 stats in the Patreon fantasy channel. Cool. Martin, I'm going to bring that up. And then, guys, there's actually a round 2 scoring on the LIV that Martin put together that we're going to bring up too. So there's actually a few stats we're going to go through here just to supplement what we're looking at, which is going to be extremely helpful. Let's see what we've got. Lauren says, fairways, Wolf was 11 of 13. Gooch was 12 of 13. Perfect. That's honestly great that you pointed that out because that's how they got to those ceiling rounds, right? They kept the ball out of trouble. They were able to access all of the pins because they had full spin on the golf ball, which these greens, I have to say, for as easy as the golf course is, the greens are not resort style greens. Like they have a ton of undulation to them. They're running relatively fast. So I kind of thought it would just be like a minus 20 winning score. I mean, as of right now, right? I mean, we have guys winning at -7, right? So they're on track to get to minus 21. Probably going to see something closer to like minus 18, minus 19 win, to be honest with you guys. Not everyone's going to go ceiling for the first 3 days, unless Cameron Smith just goes out there and scorches the place, right? That's always a possibility. But still, nonetheless, the greens here are a lot more difficult than I had to give them credit for. So I definitely want to comment on that. And you see that with the fairway stats. Like you have to be able to apply spin to the golf ball to get to quite a few of these pins because they have the undulation set up. So, they have, sorry, hopefully I didn't unplug my mic there. They have the green set up to where when you have a bunker, the green right outside the bunker always runs away from the bunker, which you see that at a lot of old traditional designs. They'll make like little rims above the bunker, which first off makes it difficult to get out of the bunker, right? You have to hit the ball higher to get it out of it. But on the opposite side, it adds another effect, right? Then the ball runs away from you. So if you're at a short-sided pin at these golf courses, it's nearly impossible to get up and down. So just being in the fairway means a whole lot here. Let's bring up those. So let me go ahead and bring up Discord. And I wanted to look at the round 2 scoring specifically. It's something that I just don't use it enough as I probably should, to be honest with you, but it definitely helps a lot of people out there. And especially because I noticed a few trends on it. So I want to go ahead and download it, bring it up here for you guys. And then we're also going to look at some of the fairway stats, which he also posted down there for us. Let's see, where's it at? Save bets. Okay. 1 second. I will share my screen here. We've got it ready. I'm going to stop sharing that and bring up what we need to here. Go. All right. So this is by Martin, by the way. So Martin's down there in chat, who was nice enough to put this together for us. And he has it sorted by round 2 scoring average. So over here on the right in green, it is sorted from best to worst scoring average. And I guess the one major thing to note here, right, is that Gooch, who's leading the golf tournament right now, is number 1 in round 2 scoring average. Now, I don't know if that's really indicative of him just being good in round 2 or of him just being one of the best players in this field, because to this point, I believe in all 3 events that he's played in, he's finished top 10. And in 2 of them, it was a top 5 finish. So, it's going to be pretty difficult not to have a good round 2 scoring average when you're in that sort of form, right, in the small sample size. So I like that. But what I'm really looking at here are some of the bounce back candidates, right? Like a Kim up top, right? Shot a horrible round in round 1, shot like 17 over. Happens to have a pretty good round 2 scoring average, which is a little bit surprising just to see the least. Let's see what we've got here. We've got HV3. You're just talking about his normal round 2 scoring average. I'm sure that's for the PGA Tour. 69.45. That's not too bad. Over here, DJ's been pretty good in round 2. He's been pretty good in every round, though. Kind of like a Taylor Gooch, has been in contention in pretty much every single LIV Golf event. You can see that Neiman for just his PGA Tour, 69.55. That's a pretty good bounce back score there. So maybe, a few guys that you might want to point out in here that you like. But what I really noticed is Kim, first of all, up there. He had to, it's only a 2-round sample size, right? London and Portland, but played a lot better round 2 than I'm pretty sure he has in round 1 for the first 2 events. And moving down a little bit further, let's see if there's any really bad ones. Yeah, at the bottom, there were a few. Jediah Morgan averages 76. Sean Norris averages 75. And, Sean Norris has been complete dog shit ever since he's gone to the LIV Tour. So that, he was somebody I was kind of high on to begin with. Same thing with Wade Ormsey, who averages 74.66. It seems like these guys, when they get out of contention in round 1, they lose their competitive fire, which makes sense. You're playing on the LIV Tour. There's no cut, right? You're going to get paid pretty much no matter what. You got all that guaranteed money anyways. You see it with some of the scores. Like even Richard Bland. I mean, I hate to point it out to you, Sack. I know you have him in your lineups. 74.6. Turk Pettit, 74.3. Whereas there's that subset of the field, here from like 71 and under that are playing under par golf, right? What we're looking for. Now, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, of the guys that are up there, haven't even played on the LIV Tour yet. So, obviously no sample size to speak of over on this side. but a lot of guys that are shooting over par, which I guess this is good to know going into our projections, because we know there's going to be a lot of guys that eject just because of the lack of motivation. I think it has to do with that. There's no way that it, couldn't be the case, that these guys just get a little bit, I don't want to say checked out, but a little bit, right? Like the team aspect, I don't know if it really does it for them, right? You can see these guys shooting 71. It's like a Westwood, Poulter, McDowell. Like, I don't want to say that they care more about the team aspect, but they might, right? Because they're used to Ryder Cup golf. You know that Westwood and Poulter are on that Majestics team, which are always almost in contention. Same thing with like Grace and Uline. I don't know. It makes sense. The guys that are at the bottom of this list, it makes perfect sense to me because like Brooks Koepka, for example, right? 70, then 76, right? So his average there is going to be a 74 there for this. Oh, I don't know about the 70. I guess that's the PGA Tour average there, the 71.27. So his average on the LIV Tour has been 73 to this point. Can't do math. You can see he's either hit or miss, right? When he's in contention, he's going to play well in round two. He's going to keep it together. But, 76 out there when he couldn't give a shit, goes out there, has a horrible round. He's somebody who, he shot even par round one. I think he's teetering on that edge. He starts well today. Maybe you see the version where goes out there and shoots a 64, 63 at this type of golf course. Shoots one or two over through the first two holes. He might be shooting 76, 77. So this type of list would be good for that sort of thing, trying to identify who's maybe a little bit volatile, like Conwat Mai. I know Sack asked about him a little bit earlier. You can see he's maybe not the best scorer in round two, but maybe that's just indicative of his general talent level. He's not a top-end player. Cantor hasn't been very good in round two. Just I think a lot we can learn from that. What we're going to do now is bring up the stat sheet too. So let me go ahead and download that, which again, by the way, Martin, you're the real MVP for sure here. And I guess Matt Vincenzi was the one who put it out. So I guess Martin can't take all the credit for this one, but I appreciate him giving it to us nonetheless. Let me go ahead and share my screen. 1 second. Actually, I gotta save the image, make this a little bit easier. Let's do that. All right, now I can share it and share the goods with y'all. So 1 second. Share screen. And on here, it's all the stats from round one. So, Martin mentioned a few earlier that were really important with the fairway stats, but look at the guys at the top of the leaderboard here. So they have it sorted by position, obviously. And look at the fairway hit numbers up here, okay? So fairways hit 11, and there's 14 fairway. Actually, there's 13 fairways here because there's 5 par 3. So there's only 13, right? 11 to 13, and that's Matthew Wolff. Matthew Wolff doesn't hit many fairways, boys, right? And he's hitting 11 fairways. That's why he gets shot -7. That's why he had the round ED. Oh, he also had a hole-in-one, right? 12 fairways. All 13 for somebody like a Kevin Gnaw. 11 for Joaquin Niemann. That's way higher than expectation for him. This tells me a few things. First off, Matthew Wolff is a fade. Joaquin Niemann is a fade. Cam Smith, he only hit 8 fairways, is not a fade, right? That's pretty normal for him. 8 of 13 fairways, that's not unsustainable. He still shot 5 under par, or what was actually 6 under pars up there at the top of the leaderboard. He could very well do that again. Taylor Gooch, he's not necessarily a full-on fade because he still hits fairways, but 12 of 13 is definitely well above what we'd expect. He's going to be chalky, so probably also somebody we'd fade. Whereas Bernd Wiesberger only hit 9. He can hit a lot more fairways, believe it or not. He's actually really accurate off the tee. Louis Ustasen can hit a lot more fairways, and he only hit 9 today and still had a great round. This is really telling right here. So these type of stats, because we don't have shots gained, are all we have to rely on. And, I kind of noticed that early on. It was like all the guys that were really good with their accuracy, the guys that I'm targeting over here for round 2 showdown. And you especially want to target them if they have room for improvement, and they still shot well. Guy like that, Arnaban Lahiri down here, Charles Howell III, all of these guys can hit a lot more fairways and improve their game. Let's see, DJ hit 9 fairways, right, and shot -3. I mean, that's kind of what you'd want to expect for somebody that hits 9 fairways, right around like a -3, -4 score. So I think he's probably going to do something similar today, which isn't horrible, but it's also not a ceiling performance for DFS. Let's see who hit well above their fairways and still sucked, because that's actually probably an issue. Richard Bland, unfortunately, hit a bunch of fairways for round one, couldn't convert them. McDowell, Swafford, Abraham Answer, couldn't make a putt for his life. Let's see his putting stats. So let's go over here with Abraham Answer. His total putts was 31st in the field. That does not sound like Abraham Answer to me, right? That sounds like an off day. So I will definitely be buying back in there, but I guess it's good to see that he hit fairways at the very least. Just come on, man. You got to start making some putts. Patrick Reed hit 6. You'd expect that. Bryson hit 9 fairways. So this just adds to the fade narrative a little bit more. Now in DFS, you might want to play him because he's high upside, right? I don't know if you can play him on Prize Picks. Like, he hit 9 fairways today, which is well above his expectation around this golf course. Well more than you'd expect. You'd probably project him for closer to like 6, maybe 7 fairways at the very best. And he still shit the bed, right? He shot like 1 under par. I don't know. Maybe in DFS you play him, but on Prize Picks, it makes me really like the fades even more than I took. Brooks hit 9 fairways. Yeah, I'd say it's slightly better than you'd expect him to hit around this track. Again, he was derailed by a bunch of double bogeys and bogeys early. And a lot of the guys at the bottom did not hit that many fairways, right? 6, 7, 7, 8. A few guys that hit fairways, but it's the lower tier players, right? Like a Scott Vincent, Jediah Morgan. We're not expecting them to shoot well anyways. I guess good to see that they hit fairways. Good on them, but they couldn't do shit with it anyways. That's how bad a player they are. Ormsey, we talked about how he just kind of doesn't try out here. I think he's just out there as like a pro-am at this point. Phil Mickelson, same story. Sam Horsfield, let's talk about him. I had high aspirations for Horsfield this week. In fact, I almost bet him outright. Did not end up pulling the trigger there, which I guess I'm pretty happy about. But I will be invested for round 2 showdown because first off, high pedigree player. We know that about Sam Horsfield. But on top of that, he had 11 fairways and he just could not make a putt. Like I saw it on the broadcast. It was horrendous. Anytime he had a birdie look, he missed it. He's not that type of guy. He's a much better player than what he's played, at least so far this event. You've seen him play pretty well in the other LIV events. I'll definitely be there on the same Horsfield. So it's good to see that he hit 11 fairways. Kim, as you'd expect, shooting an 87, which, again, 17 over par, hit 7 fairways. I honestly thought it would have been lower than that based on how horribly he was hitting the ball there. Let's see what we've got. We have Martin who says, Kamanjana hit 13 of 13 and 17 of 18 greens. That's insane. I wish we had Prize Picks green and regulation props, because I'd be all over Saddam there, that's for sure. Sack says, thanks for the info, Martin. What about Chikara? What are his stats? So let me bring it up for you. I'll let you know that. So Chikara is in 18th place right now. He only hit 8 fairways, so he didn't hit that many, but he got away with it, I guess is the good way to look at that. And in total putts, he was 28th, and he's not known to be a good putter. That's the one thing I'll say about him, Sack, is he's known to be somebody who's not the best plays. He's not the best putter. He's not the best off the tee with his accuracy, but he's super long off the tee. He's electric with his iron. So I would say kind of similar. I don't want to say like a John Rahm, because John Rahm's also accurate off the tee, and Chikara is definitely not accurate off the tee at this point, but he's got a similar type of iron play where he's going to gain like a stroke per round. Like Chikara, if you put him on the PGA Tour right now, would probably be like a top 20, top 25 iron player on tour. Now, he would probably miss a lot of cuts because he'd be like Kyle Stanley with the putting. Off the tee accuracy is also an issue for him. But if he can hone in any of those skills, and he's super young at this point, I believe he's like college age or just out of college right now, he's got a lot of room to improve. So, I like him, Sack. He showed it round 1, right? He's up there in like 18th place. That's pretty decent. I have not gone over Prize Picks yet. We're going to do that at the end. And Tar Heel says, Data Golf has Chikara projected as a great value. I don't know what they're using for their projections. We don't have that much data on him, unfortunately. Even them, like I'm sure they don't have that much data on Chikara because he was just coming out of college. But everything that we've seen about him, especially even on LIV Tour, like he's played pretty well to this point. He's looked like the Bill. Like he came out of college, like this is a striper. He's got like John Rahm level irons. Usually that translates, right? I mean, Colin Morikawa, right, was the last prospect. I'd say Victor Hovland too also kind of had that rep for just insanely good irons. Not a surprise that those sort of players make it on tour. And honestly, at least to my understanding, the guys that never played on tour that are playing on LIV Tour right now could still go to the PGA Tour. I'm almost positive that they have not broken any rules because they were never part of the PGA Tour to begin with. So I'm hoping that guys like P.O., Chikara, who else would be talking about there? I guess Jediah Morgan would fit that same sort of build. Scott Vincent can get tour cards and eventually play on the PGA Tour because they're, I don't want to say they're like Colin Morikawa level stars, but I mean, they're maybe not that level, but they're getting close to it, right? They're not Will Zalatoris level stars, but they're that tier below, maybe a Davis Riley sort of level star, right? At least I think it could be even better than that. So I hope they get the chance someday. Let's talk about the weather here though. So I wanted to bring this up. This is for a wind station, I believe like 2 miles away from the golf course. So this is extremely accurate. It was for Friday. and they're teeing off at 1:15 p.m. Eastern time. So you're going to have 7 to 6 miles an hour of sustained winds the entire day. Wind gusts pretty much non-existent. They only exist right around when they tee off, and it's a 2-mile-an-hour differential, which is pretty much non-existent there. So you're looking at ideal conditions. Temperature right around 80 degrees, which, when it's 90, the ball will travel a little bit further, but then you're also dealing with fatigue factor, especially, even up here in the Northeast, with just how humid it can be. It can feel like an absolute fryer out there. Down here in South Florida, it was 98 degrees yesterday, so it was an actual fryer out there when I was playing, but it should be comfortable. Very calm conditions out there, and we should expect similar scores to what we saw today. And, I kind of talked about that with my Prize Picks preview for the people on the Patreon there is, we got a similar board to what we saw in round one. They almost made no adjustments, and a lot of the board went over. I mean, look at this. I mean, Matthew Wolff made like 8 birdies, right? Taylor Gooch made like 9. Cam Smith made like 7. You had Joaquin make like 7. The whole way down to, let's see, pretty much the guys that shot like -2, all of these guys smashed on all their props. Now, the guys that missed, weren't even the guys at -1. Like Bryson went over. Somebody like Brooks went over his birdie prop down here. The guys that went under were just like scattered a few, like Abraham Answer, for example, who I actually took. That kind of sucked. Guys like Mark Leishman went under some of their birdie props, right? It's like 4 or 5 guys. And then you had everyone else smash their props, and they kept the board the same. Like, we're going to talk about the Prize Picks board later. I'm expecting it to play the same, if not easier, because it's quote-unquote moving day today, right? It's their second round, which I guess would be the moving day over here for the LIV Tour. You're going to see fireworks. They had to have enjoyed all of the scoring yesterday. I know all of the fans did. It's what they wanted to see from the LIV Tour, right? A lot of scoring, a lot of 6, 7 under rounds, perhaps something even close to a 59. I think that's what we're going to get, which is exciting for the Prize Picks and, of course, the DFS side. Let's go over to the Draftkings board first. We're going to do that and then hop into Prize Picks after. So for the Draftkings board, we're just going to talk through some of my top plays. And my general strategy for round 2 Showdown, whether it's for the PGA Tour, whether it's for LIV, is to take pivots, right? After round 1, there is a huge overreaction to players' rounds in round 1. Now, there's one exception to that rule. I love Cam Smith. We just went through the stats there, and we saw that he only hit 8 fairways, yet still shot 6 under par. He could improve on that, right? There's only 13 fairways, so granted, 8 of 13 is pretty solid there, but Cam Smith can get into a groove with the driver, right? Can go sideways real quickly too, but at $11,000, I think because he's way up there up top, he's even more expensive than he was for round 1, maybe people are a little bit hesitant to get there, right? Because, you slot him in there, and you're already down there at $7,800. It's hard to go Cam Smith and try and jam in somebody else like a Joaquin Neiman, try to even go down to the 7K range. It's going to be tough to probably jam in somebody like a Bryson, right? If you do so, you're down to 7,300 for your last 4 spots. So I think there might be a little bit of hesitation to get to a Cam Smith. And frankly, somebody that I really like here. So I'm actually going to keep him in there. He's going to be one of our cornerstones for the lineups here. Honestly, I'm going to see myself playing at least 65, probably 70% here for the second round, because he's going to be 30, maybe 40% owned. He's going to get a lot of attention. And that's despite not having the ceiling round, right? Taylor Gooch, he's probably going to be about 25, 30% owned. He's going to be somebody that I'm avoiding, because if you remember, he hit almost every single fairway. He hit 12 of them, right? And putted the absolute lights out. There's one thing we know about Taylor Gooch is he can get real cold with that flat stick. He is far from consistent in that category. So at 10,200, high ownership, I'm probably off of him. Joaquin Neiman, probably off of 2, to be honest. I mean, I don't hate the play. I understand getting there, but he hit a bunch of fairways, right? He went well over his expectation when it came to fairways hit, which is a little bit worrisome to me. Now, DJ, right at -3. If you're looking for a pivot in this range, you'd want to get to Dustin Johnson. The issue that I have, right, is that Cam Smith and DJ hit the same amount of fairways, and Cam Smith went twice as low under par. Now, the ownership on them might be twice as high. So you might argue that, oh, well, I'm going to play DJ then because he's the lower owned option. If he succeeds, I'm going against less people. But I'd argue that Cam Smith might be twice as likely to succeed here. So for me, it's not as black and white as just taking the lower owned player. Sometimes, if that's your strategy with DFS, that's what you do for every slate, by all means, play the lower owned player, right? That's why we're going over this here, right? Talking about who's going to be higher owned and lower owned. DJ is definitely going to be the pivot between the two players. I'm taking Cam Smith because I think he has a better round. And sometimes that's just how it works in DFS. You got to take the higher owned guy. They end up working out. Sometimes when you do so, you look like an absolute donkey afterwards, right? It is what it is. That's how DFS works. You hit some, you lose some. That's a mindset you have to have going in. And I'm definitely going to play some Cam Smith. Is he going to be locked into my lineups? No, it's probably going to be like 60, 65%. But it's going to be a healthy amount. It's going to be leverage, right? If he's 35%, my 65% is going to be enough to at least get some sort of leverage to the field. Might not even be 2x leverage, right? But it'll be pretty damn close to there. And I feel comfortable enough with my lineups that out of the 60, I'm running 69 lineups here for the second round, that I'll have something close to the nuts. Let's move down a little bit further. I don't love Joaquin Niemann. We talked about that. Taylor Gooch, I think, is going to be really chalky. Paul Casey is going to be mega low owned. I'm talking maybe close to 10, 11% at the very most in terms of his ownership. And that is still here in only a 48 player field. And the reasoning here is $10,000. If he was $9,900, you might see him being 5, 10% higher owned. Like legitimately, it would make that big of a difference. Now he's a 10K golfer and he only shot -4, which, right, only -4. I mean, get out of here, right? -4 is a solid score. He's a good course fit out there. I honestly don't hate the Paul Casey play. In fact, I'm going to be playing him in my personal pool just because he's going to be way lower owned than he should be because of his price tag. And again, it's a $100 difference between him being like 10, 11% owned, maybe 20, maybe 22% owned, like literally could be twice as much. So I'll definitely be there. Anytime there's artificial changes in ownership that are due to something as silly as like a price tag, it's like when you go to the gas station, right? It's, $2.59 and 9-10 cents or whatever it is. Well, I wish it was that, right? It's a lot more expensive now. It's silly, right? That sort of effect would have such a massive effect psychologically on shoppers, but it does. And they make a lot of money because of it. So don't fall into that same sort of trap. Paul Casey, look at him as like a $9,900 golfer. And at that price tag, he's like head and shoulders better than his peers here, the 9K range. Now, if you compare him to the 10K guys, you're like, oh shit, right? Like he's clearly the worst option up there. But that's not always the best way to look at it. We talked about Bryson. I think he's okay in DFS. When we talk about Prize Picks, he's going to be a fade for sure because he still hit a good amount of fairways. I couldn't do much today. I do like Brooks Koepka. Just needs to clean up the act. Made plenty of birdies in round 1. Round 2 scoring has kind of been all over the place. And now that he's there in 31st, it's make or break time. So if you're looking for a safe play, steer very clear from somebody like a Brooks Koepka. But if you're looking for a high upside play, let's say you're playing 69 lineups like I am for today, you'd be okay playing your Brooks Koepka, right? Taking him in 30% of your lineup. So for me, someone close to like 25, something in that range. Maybe that might be a little bit aggressive, taking him in 25, but maybe we'll do it. I'll be okay with that, right? Because I'll still have 40 something on lineups to go out there and have success. Moving down, Abraham Answer, I think he's a little bit overpriced, but I love myself an overpriced golfer who sucked in round 1 because that means he's going to be low owned. So Abraham Answer at $9,000. I love that. He's a pivot. And because I'm taking like an Abraham Answer down here, and we're going to talk about plenty of pivots here in the mid-tier range, I'm okay taking Cam Smith, right? Like he can be a piece of chalk that I eat if I'm taking guys that are clear pivots here in the 9K range, like an Abraham Answer. I think that Brooks Koepka might be a little bit lower owned than he should be because he shot even par, right? But again, made, I think it was 6 birdies on the day. So just, ridiculous birdie production. I like Leishman. Leishman made quite a few birdies. He's $8,500. New LIV signing. They tend to have a lot of success early out the gates here. So I think he might be worth a few looks. Let's see. Tringali shot +1. Oh no, right? He's over par. He could never turn it around to round 2. Yes, he can. It's Cameron Tringali. The guy's an absolute madman. Guy could shoot 7, 8 under par today. It would not surprise me. So $8,100. I think he's worth a few looks there. Moving on to the 7K range, you have a few chalky pieces here. So you're looking at good ownership, let's say, on a Kevin Gnaw, Arnaman Lahiri. They're probably going to be at least 15% owned. So they're not going to be pivots there. I don't think you have to avoid them, but they're not going to be pivots. Charles Schwartzel, I think, is worth a few looks. He's there in 18th place. So I don't think he's going to get nearly the same bump as these guys that are tied for 5th, right? Tied for 5th looks a whole lot better than somebody that's tied for 18th, that's for sure. And you're talking about a 2-shot difference. And Schwartzel, arguably better ball striker than these two players. And if he just doesn't hit driver everywhere, I mean, I wish I could get in Charles' ear and just tell him, just be like, yo, just hit 3-wood everywhere. You'll be fine. You have more than enough length at a 6,900-yard golf course to hit 3-wood everywhere and dominate. Still have wedge into almost every single green. he would go super low here. Again, I wish I had a way to get in his ear and tell him that. For honestly, a lot of players in this field, Bryson, for example, hit iron off of every tee, Bryson, and they're going to shoot like 7 under par. The thing is, they get greedy. They think they're going to shoot like 59 or something. They think they're going to get in some groove off the tee where they can hit driver off the day and hit every fairway. It's not going to happen, right? Unless you're Saddam, who ended up hitting all 13 of 13 greens today. Yesterday. It's not going to happen very often, right? And these players are acting like it's going to. It's kind of funny to me. And if they would just, maybe suck up the ego a little bit and play smart golf, might end up winning the golf tournament. Who knows? Let's see. Let's move down to the 7K range. We've got Poulter. I like. He shot -1, so he won't get much attention there. Another player who can light it up with the putter. Down here, I'm looking for guys that are accurate off the tee and that can light it up with the putter. Also, guys that are low owned. Peter Uihlein fits that description. Wiesberger, again, so he's going to be chalky here. But I'm okay eating Wiesberger chalk because he only hit 8 fairways. So if you remember seeing the stats that we brought up before, and this is an accurate driver of the golf ball, he's got a ton of room for improvement, right? Just hit a few more fairways, continue to do what you did in round 1, and oh boy, Wiesberger could go out there and improve on his 4-under performance. He could be the leader after this round for all we know. So I like that quite a bit. It's $6,900. You got Saddam down here, just an absolute stud. The more and more that we look at this kid, the more and more that he just impresses us. Top 10 performance so far is $6,600. Not a surprise that he'll probably be a little bit chalky, but I think it's probably well warranted. The guy is on an absolute mission right now. Sichuan Kim, you guys know how he's the #1 scorer in the field for round 2 scoring. I think he might be worth a look here. He's +17. I understand. Like, it's just, who the hell knows what happened to him? Like, I've shot that before. Actually, yesterday, I probably shot something close to a +17, to be quite honest with you, it's embarrassing. It's something that you never want to do, particularly if you're a professional golfer. He's actually played pretty well on the LIV Tour so far. Like, and you can see over here on the World Tour, he made the cut at the Kazoo Classic, didn't make the cut at the Open. You don't like to see that, but tied for 11th at one of the LIV events. Sure, tied for 43rd isn't that bad. He shot 69 in round 2 after shooting a 78. So, he's started horribly before and rebounded. So it's not like it's completely out of the realm of possibility. You're not talking about a complete slapdick out there, right, with this Kim guy. So just understand, like, when I'm telling you that this is like a pure flyer play, like maybe you take him in 5% of your lineups at the very most, that's exactly what I mean. But he's done it before. And if he were to shoot like a 67 today, which I think is maybe like half a shot better than what the average is going to be, that would be probably enough at $6,400, at least for 2 to 3 maxes, single entries. That'd be more than enough in those formats, perhaps even enough in some of the larger field GPPs. James P.O.'s, I think, is worth a few looks. I thought he was going to be higher owned than he actually came in at. He came in at 0.42%. I thought he was going to be closer to like maybe 2-3%. I thought he'd be at least significantly owned, and that was not the case. Him being +8 is not going to help that. In fact, he'll probably be like 0.1% owned now. And at that sort of level, I have to be a buyer. The kid won the USAM. He's unbelievably talented. And if you take a look at his game log here, you can see he's posted a few good rounds. Most notably at the US Open, he was in contention at the US Open after the first round. You can see he's finished in the top 26 of the first 2 LIV events. Okay, whatever. Top 25 over there at London. Okay, whatever. But you can see, he's played on tour a few times. He hasn't made a cut, but he's at least been competitive from time to time, particularly of late. Like, he's getting better. You saw it at the US Open. That round there on Thursday was a breakthrough round for James P.O. He's a young kid. I believe he's still 19 years old. He literally looks like a high schooler. Or like a freshman in college. Like, he's got that sort of look to him. So understand that, like, he's like very, very raw in terms of a prospect, but he might have a ceiling performance in him here at some point. He won the USAM. You have to have a ceiling performance. Have to go out there and just absolutely ball out for pretty much, I think it's like a week and a half, 2-week span there. I think that he's got a higher pedigree than the guys around him. I'd rather play him than Chase Koepka, rather play him than Wade Ormsby. Chikara I like at $6,100. Do you like him? I'd say I like Chikara actually a little bit more than P.O., but I don't think that you need to completely ignore him. So I'd like him there. Beland, we talked about, I like quite a bit. Saddam, we talked about quite a bit there too. I think it'll be a little bit chalky, but I think it's warranted. And at the top of the 6K range, it's kind of a dead zone. So we talked about Wiesberger. I'll be there. But Keimer, just kind of like an okay play. I'll have him in like 7 to 10% of lineups, just kind of sprinkling him in. Mickelson has looked really good with the ball striking, but continues to be unable to make a putt for his life. And I'm not sure if that's going to change. So I'm probably not there on Phil. Swafford to be a little bit more likely to get to. Let's look at his stats, actually. I need to look at Swafford's fairways. 1 second here, guys. I'll bring it up. So Swafford today shot -1, and he hit 10 fairways. Okay, so that's well above his expectation. I was going to be excited to get to him there, but I don't think I can anymore, because if he's hitting 10 fairways and still only shooting 1 under par, that's not a good sign for the rest of his game, right? Clearly, when he got it in the fairway, wasn't taking advantage. That or the putter was ice cold, which I guess if I take a look at his stats, yeah, his putting stats weren't that great. I guess it makes sense. So I'm okay on Swafford. I was going to make him like a 20-25% play if his fairways were low. If you're talking about, pretty horrendous putting stats like we're looking at, but it wasn't that sort of profile. So that's what I'm thinking with DFS, guys. Let's go ahead and go over some questions and then hop into the prize pick stuff. Martin says even Phil went over. Yeah, so we're talking about the prize picks board. Yeah, everyone went over, including Phil. Like, just ridiculous. And he shot +4, right? He went over birdies. Todd says, who do you think will win? I think it'll be Cam Smith. I think Cam Smith wins this by 3 or 4 strokes. Like, he did not hit fairways in round 1. I mean, off the first tee, he hit it into some deep rough on a 500-yard par 4 and then saved par. I don't think anyone else in this field was going to go out and do that. I mean, DJ did it because it's DJ, right? He's still top 10, top 20 player in the world. But yeah, I think Cam Smith wins this thing. That's definitely the pick that I'd go with. All right, let's talk through the prize picks board now. So I have it up on the birdie or better side, and I like almost the whole board over. And for my guys on Patreon, I did make it a lot more concise, right? I ended up taking like 4 or 5 birdie or better overs. I took like 3 or 4 overs, actually a couple overs for strokes, a couple unders for strokes too there, and then like 4 or 5 birdie or better matchups. The fact of the matter is, though, almost every single player here, I'd advise taking the over on. In fact, there's only one guy here for birdie or better that I really would want to take a stance against, and that is Bryson DeChambeau. Reason why: he made 5 birdies in round 1. That is the first time in LIV Golf, I believe, that he's made 5 birdies, at least because I've bet him every single time he's played on LIV, and he's lost me the bet at 4.5 birdies every single time, right? Yesterday goes out there, hits at 4.5 birdies. Great. I played it yesterday, but now he's at 5 birdies when he's had so much trouble getting to that mark the entire time on this tour. On top of that, went way over his expectation yesterday in terms of fairways hit. Also made a few bombs in terms of his putts. Just to get to 6 birdies, you're talking about birdieing a third of your holes. That is a tough ask for anyone, let alone somebody like Bryson, who's also still dealing with a lot of rustiness. He's still got to get a lot of that rust off from the injury. He's one of the guys I'll actually fade there at 5, because I think at the worst case, he's getting to that number, right? Pushing for us. And anytime you have a card and you have a push on it, right, it just relegates to a lower number. It sucks that he's a fade that we're taking that does that, but I'd much rather that than an over, right? Something like an over where you're losing your multiplier for something that's not even giving you the multiplier to begin with, right? If you're pushing on the prop that's giving you the multiplier, it doesn't sting nearly as much. It's like, okay, whatever. We're not hitting that leg to begin with. So I like taking the under somebody like a Bryson at 5. A couple of overs I took. I guess I just want to point out here, I would love Abraham Answer over 4 birdies. I expect to see a huge bounce back today. And again, the average was close to 5 birdies for the field. Brooks Koepka, I think he's in another solid position to go well over 4.5 birdies. I'd take Cam Smith, DJ, both of those guys up there at 5 birdies. All make a lot of sense to me. It's going to be a birdie fest once again. It's moving day, which means there should be even more accessible pins. So that's what I'm thinking for birdie or better. For strokes, it's mostly guys that I'm taking the under on. And there's not a ton that I gave out to my Patreon peeps because it tended to be the most volatile category, because you had guys like a Phil yesterday that shot +4, went well over their strokes, but also covered their birdie or better line. I mean, plenty of the guys down low. Just to give you an example, I mean, you had guys like Perez, for example, who went, at least for a while, was well over his birdie line, but didn't end up getting to his strokes line until an eagle there in his last few holes. And, if he hadn't made that eagle, might not have ended up crushing his line there. So it's a little bit volatile. You got to get a little bit of luck going your way for some of these. So that's why I'm kind of avoiding it. But a few overs I took. Paul Casey over 67.5. I think that he's being a little bit overrated there. Through the front 9 yesterday, he was even par, hadn't made a birdie, That was a little bit concerning. And then on the back nine, went out there and absolutely smashed. So maybe he figured something out. Good for him. But I wouldn't count on that round after round, right? Going out there shooting a 36 on your front nine, going on the back nine shooting 29, not going to happen all that often. So for me, I'm taking the over there at 67.5. And even though that's despite, I think, the average for today being right around that number, 67.5, I'm still taking the over there. Same thing with Louis Oosthuizen. And for Ustasen, I love the guy. He's actually one of my favorite players on tour. I usually love supporting the dude. But one thing I know about him, it's just unfortunate, is his health sometimes gets in the way. Sometimes he'll wake up and be a little bit stiff there. So there's always the injury risk that helps you with a Louis Oosthuizen if you're taking a fade there. But also, for his first round, the stats weren't the greatest for him. Hit a bunch of fairways. Somebody who the putting definitely was there. For Louis, last year, we'd count on him putting every single tournament. In fact, he was the number one putter on tour. It just became lights out. You knew everything was going to go in. At least for before he left for the LIV Tour, it looked horrible, right? The putting was completely non-existent. He really fell off in that category, and that's why the results kind of followed as a suit. And I love that we saw, good old Louis Oosthuizen, right? What we're used to seeing from him out there on the greens. I don't know if we can count on that though, right? Like, it happened round one, great. That's why he went out there and was able to shoot something like 3-4 under par. But he's got to do that to get to that sort of score. And frankly, more often than not this year, he hasn't been that sort of guy. So if you think he's going to hold that momentum, maybe just fade the prop, right? Don't take the over or the under, because I think there's just as much risk if you're taking the under there and hoping that he goes out there and continues to putt like that, right? Like, that's still asking quite a bit. But I definitely fade the over on strokes for a Louis Oosthuizen. I think that he may be a little bit rusty, maybe somebody to be a little bit careful about. A few other guys here I want to consider. I guess, under on somebody like a Abraham Answer would make a lot of sense. I like him over there on birdies are better, maybe a little bit more though. Again, these end up being a little bit more volatile because there still are these tree-lined fairways where, you saw with the guy that shot plus 17, right? Like, he was in jail a few times. He had to hit out sideways. He made, I believe, like an 8 on a par 3 or something like that. There's a lot of huge scores to be had. So I generally prefer the birdies are better because they're a little bit more immune to some of that variance, but still some decent numbers to be had there. But with birdie or better, there's actually 5 that I like here. So I'm going to give you guys my 3 that I like the most. I like the Brooks over Charles Howell III here. Brooks today made 6 birdies. He clearly had it with the flat stick, which is what you're looking for with Brooks. Against Charles Howell III, who's almost the same sort of player, just worse, right? Great ball striker, can't really putt that consistently. Had the putter in round 1 for Charles Howell III. Now, very well, round 2, right? They're both probably going to lose the putter, right? They're both probably going to be mediocre in that category, be pretty solid with the ball striking, but who's the better ball striker, right? It's not even a question. It's Brooks Koepka all day. So you're just talking about somebody who's a better player versus somebody who's, let's say, like an average level player here for the LIV Tour. And from a 50-50 sort of prop perspective, I'm always going to take Brooks Koepka, the better player. So definitely like that one. An under that I'm taking is Lee Westwood under. So I'm taking the Bernd Wiesberger side over Lee Westwood. And for me, you saw it with Wiesberger's driving accuracy. He only hit 8 fairways. I didn't even know that when I took this prop. For me, it's all about course fit and pedigree. Lee Westwood is washed. The guy's an old man at this point. He is a shell of his former self. On the other side, you have Bernd Wiesberger. He's a stud. He's relatively young. He's recently won on the DP World Tour. He's had quite a bit of success on the LIV Tour, particularly for round 1 this week. Just, on the upswing versus somebody on the downswing. And he can back up a good round 1, right? Because Wiesberger only hit 8 fairways, right? He has all that room for improvement. I like that even more there. And I took a few other ones, but the one I'll point out here is I took Brendan Grace under. So I'm taking the Mark Leishman side over Brendan Grace. And what I'm thinking there is Leishman just a better player than Brendan Grace. It's actually not even close, especially in terms of pedigree. Grace has played pretty solid golf on the LIV Tour, but that doesn't necessarily matter. They have 2-3 weeks in between events. Recent form isn't really something I consider all that much when it comes to the LIV Tour because of that. On the PGA Tour, if you have a good 2 to 3 week stretch before an event, it's usually at least that month, right? Brendan Grace's form goes back like 3 months, right? Like how useful is that, right? That'd be like the last 50, 60 rounds for form for somebody on the PGA Tour. So for me, I'd much rather take the higher pedigree player, which for me is a Mark Leishman. He also still made 4 birdies on the first round, which I believe was still right on par with somebody like Brendan Grace, maybe 1 behind. And always always going to take the bounce back with somebody that's a better player. So that's what I'm thinking for Prize Picks. Let's go ahead and see if there's any questions down there. Then we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. See what we've got. You got no questions. That works for me, boys. We've been doing this for 50 minutes, so a little bit longer than I wanted to do it. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. We're going to do the same thing for Sunday. So I prefer to do these streams in the morning and be able to digest my analysis, get up my stuff on Patreon so everyone's able to hit the Prize Picks props that I'm putting out. Some of the DFS chat that we put down to the Discord, you're able to make your own laps beforehand. And then I go ahead and put it out on YouTube, right? So if there's any movement with the props, right? The guys on Patreon aren't getting screwed, that sort of thing. And then from the DFS side, I think it's a little bit more actionable, right? We're able to see some of the ownership and able to get a feel for how people are making their lineups, which in turn makes better content for you guys on the flip side. So we're going to go ahead and do it there on Sunday morning, get you ready for the final round. And then next week, guys, we've got NFL content coming like crazy. We're going to have a showdown preview dropping there on Monday, a bunch of main slate videos. So that'll be starting on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday there. Going to go position by position, talking about 3 or 4 players for the round. I'll not call it round one because it's a week one with the NFL. Got to get my terminology there on point for the players I like to play. And it's not going to be like Cooper Kupp. Let's go out and play somebody like Jonathan Taylor like week one. It's not going to be like some jackass out there telling you to play the best players in the world. It's going to be guys that are, a little bit cheaper, right? Maybe like a $6,000 running back, maybe one of those $3,000-$4,000 wide receivers that you're getting on DraftKings. It's going to be a lot more informative than I think some of the other channels out there that just tell you to play the guys that you're playing anyways, right? Like it's just a no-brainer. So look forward to that. I appreciate everybody stopping by. Make sure to smash that like button before you hop on out of here, and let's get this cash, fellas.